Hello, my name is Michael Tillotson, and I am an author. Today, we are here to talk about The Legend of Korra. Just about everyone can agree that Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing show. Finding someone who dislikes Avatar is even rarer than finding a lion turtle. Opinions on the sequel series, The Legend of Korra, on the other hand, well, let's just say it's a little bit more divisive. There are a lot of people, like me, who love it, a lot of people who absolutely hate it, and a lot of people who are somewhere in the middle. Generally speaking, though, there is one thing that most everyone can agree on, whatever their opinion is on the series as a whole, and that's that the big honking spirit lasers are kind of dumb. And I don't completely disagree, at least not as far as Season 2 is concerned. The one thing I really like about Korra, both the show and the character, is that they just take the punches and keep on rolling. The show makes its fair share of mistakes, especially in Season 2, but rather than retconning them or acting like they didn't happen, the show takes what it had, even if it wasn't great, and makes something great out of it. So today, I want to talk about the worst part of The Legend of Korra, and how maybe it's not actually that bad. So, this video is going to contain spoilers for both Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, so keep that in mind before watching. So let's just quickly recap if you need a refresher or haven't seen Korra in the first place. Long ago, the first Avatar, Wan, interfered in a battle between the primordial spirits of light and darkness, Rava and Vatu. This gives Vatu the upper hand and threatens to engulf the world in 10,000 years of darkness. Not willing to let this happen, Wan and Rava team up, with Wan learning all the elements and fusing with Rava to become the first Avatar. They then seal Vatu away for 10,000 years, and now, in the modern day, the big bad guy Unalaq wants to free Vatu and fuse with him so he can become a dark Avatar and usher in a new age of darkness. This is where the spirit beams are first introduced, being fired by Vatu and later Unavatu, the fused form of Unalaq and Vatu. Then Korra also gets this ability. After losing Rava, she meditates over the Tree of Time and becomes a giant spirit Korra, and apparently that lets her fire spirit beams. We then get a big kaiju fight in Republic City, where Korra fuses with Rava again, beats Unavatu, and achieves a happy ending. Woohoo! Now, everything I just said is definitely the worst part of Korra. It feels very out of touch with the rest of the series, like they were just upping the stakes as high as they could without any real reason to it. And this is a shame, I think, because the other half of this season, that's not dealing with all this stuff, is really fun. You have this civil war and this conspiracy plotline, and before he's revealed to be the big bad evil villain of evilness, Unalaq's intentions were actually fairly interesting. The Southern Water Tribe had lost its connection with the spirits, and this was, as far as we knew, causing dark spirits to attack people. And Unalaq supposedly just wanted to restore that connection to the spirits to stop these dark spirit attacks. And he turned out to just be straight up evil, but until that point, this was actually kind of interesting. He was the villain, but this is a arguably pretty noble thing to do. And back on the topic of the spirit beings specifically, I could probably be okay with the idea of Vatu having this ability, primordial spirit of darkness and all that. But when Korra turns into a giant spirit, she also gets this ability, and at that point in the story, Korra wasn't even fused with Rava, so this isn't Rava's power, it's just something Korra can do, apparently. And the justification is probably just its harmonic convergence, which is like Sozin's comet for spirit stuff, but I don't know, it was just weird. But, for as much of a fumble as this all was in Season 2, the spirit beams eventually make a resurgence in Season 4, and here I think things are actually pretty interesting. So, to finish up our recap, the Battle of Unavatu created all these vines in Republic City, which came to be known as the Spirit Wilds. Varric tries to use these spirit vines to create a clean source of energy, but accidentally replicates Vatu's spirit laser instead. At the time, he's working for Kuvira, and upon witnessing the spirit beam, she commands him to make more, a super weapon which she can use to unite the new Earth Empire. After a series of events, she gets her big spirit beam cannon, mounts it on a giant mech, and attacks Republic City. Recap over. So, first and foremost, the Season 4 Spirit Beam feels significantly less out of left field. Firstly, in the context of the wider series, this is the second time we've seen these Spirit Beams in action, so we already know it's a part of the world. But even within the context of just Season 4 by itself, the show goes out of its way to establish that these beams exist before they ever become a threat. Varric accidentally fires one out of the back of a train before Kuvira ever uses it in battle. An essential part of the plot line revolves around Kuvira attempting to properly build a useful form of the Spirit Beam. I doubt it would have fixed the whole issue, but if Season 4 came first and we had all this stuff with Kuvira building the Spirit Beam, and then Unavatu came later and started firing his own, it probably would have felt a lot less arbitrarily upping the stakes with big Dragon Ball lasers. This thing in Season 4 makes the Spirit Laser just feel so much less like a cheap trick used to up the stakes and make it feel more along the lines of something like Sozin's Comet. Though when it arrived was much less within the control of Ozai, Sozin's Comet served the same role in the story that Kuvira's Spirit Cannon does. It's a super weapon that the big bad will use to end the war, and like Sozin's Comet, ultimately the weapon does wind up being put to use, and the heroes are forced to find a way to fight it anyway. And honestly, not only is that just kind of fun, but I actually think this is one of the things that Korra pulled off a lot better than Avatar. The battle against Kuvira's Colossus requires a lot more clever use of Team Avatar's abilities than we wound up seeing with Aang vs. Ozai. And to be clear, I'm not saying Aang vs. Ozai was bad, not in the least, it was great. But the Colossus fight really felt like it took everything the heroes had to take it down, while Aang vs. Ozai is, well, Aang vs. Ozai. Aang beats Ozai all by himself. And whenever I rewatch Avatar, I always find myself much more interested in what the rest of Team Avatar is doing, more than what Aang himself is doing, you know? The other thing I really love about the Spirit Cannon in Season 4 is how there's a lot of layers as to how to take it down. First, we have both Varric and Bolin trying to keep the technology out of Kuvira's hands altogether by blowing up the initial research station. Then we had Zhu Li going undercover and trying to sabotage the weapon before it was finished. And then when that failed, we had Raiko demanding Varric make him his own spirit cannons to fight fire with fire, and Team Avatar had to step in and affirm that no, we're not going to be using this terrible weapon. But then that brought up the question of how do they fight something like this without matching it with equal force? The Spirit Cannon in Season 4 just felt like a natural evolution to what we've seen in the past. They made sense within the context of the world, and its existence spurred so many good plot lines that it's really hard to hate it, at least for me. But all of that so far basically boils down to it was just executed well. Even if the Spirit Cannon was a bad idea, which to be clear I don't think it was, a bad idea executed well can still turn out to be really amazing. Like, one writing trope I really hate is the idea of setting a story within a video game, usually an MMO. A big part of storytelling revolves around suspending the audience's belief, but when you set your story within a world that doesn't exist within the canon of your world that already doesn't exist, it's like a constant reminder that the world we're experiencing isn't real, because the characters in the world are also aware it isn't real, even if they're talking about a different world. So when I played a game called Crosscode and saw that it was canonically set within an MMO, I was initially really put off, but the story wound up being pretty stinking good. I really liked it, and Crosscode is one of my favorite games of all time now. But the thing about the Spirit Cannon that really made me want to talk about this was something I heard someone say as one of the reasons the Spirit Cannon is bad, but I wanted to talk about as to why I agree this problem exists, but is actually a good thing. And that is that the Spirit Cannon demystifies the spirit world. And yes, it totally does. In Avatar, the spirit world is a very mystical, unknowable realm, and we don't see very much of it. And by and large, Avatar handles the spiritual side of things much better than Korra does. In Korra, the spirits feel markedly different than they do in the original show. In Avatar, they feel more woven into the world, and they feel like they're a natural part of it. The spirits in Korra always felt a little more disconnected, I suppose. Like, they exist in Korra because they were a part of Avatar. They have to exist. Which is ironic, because they serve a much bigger role in the plot of Korra than they do in Avatar. But when it comes to Season 4, and we see Kuvira harvesting the spirit vines to fuel her spirit cannon, it feels kind of strange, doesn't it? The spirit world stops feeling like this mystical, unknowable otherworld and starts to feel like a thing that can be manipulated and harnessed. And in response to this, Korra ventures into the spirit world to ask the spirits for help in taking out Kuvira, and they give her a pretty interesting response. One of the spirits says, "You want the same thing that Kuvira wants, to use the spirits as weapons." Korra never meant it this way, but the spirit is kind of right. That's exactly what Korra was asking for. When Korra united the two worlds, when Republic City became overrun by the spirit wild, so humans and spirits were living side by side, the world changed. The spirit world was being demystified. As part of this, when war broke out, humans on both sides of the conflict hoped to use spirits for their own gain. The only difference being, Kuvira was willing to take it by force if necessary. And this feeling that the spirit world is being demystified, that humans are just harnessing the power of spirits to use for their battles that have nothing to do with the spirits at all, it feels kind of wrong. When Kuvira harvests the spirit vines by force, yes, but also when Raiko asked for spirit vine weaponry, and when Korra was pushed to ask the spirits to help in the war. When we first learn of bloodbending in Avatar, it feels like this twisted perversion of waterbending. There's just something inherently wrong about it. This is how I've always felt about Kuvira harvesting the spirit vines as well. The spirits throughout all of Avatar have always felt sacred, like a thing to be revered and taken care of. Kuvira's blatant disregard for that, her reckless harvesting of the spirit vines for her personal gain, Korra wanting to use the spirits as soldiers, Raiko's insistence on making the spirit vine weaponry to fight Kuvira. The feeling that the spirits are to be revered, that nature is to be respected, it's fading away in the world of Korra. As far as Kuvira is concerned, and as far as Raiko is concerned, the spirits are just another resource to be harvested. And that's kind of sad, don't you think? So, while yes, the spirit canon takes away some of the mystery of the spirits and the spirit world, I think it falls right in line with the story that Korra is trying to tell. The spirits are being demystified to us, the audience, because they're being demystified within the world. And it feels wrong, but it's supposed to feel wrong. It would be interesting to get another series focused on the Avatar after Korra to see where this world goes from here. Wan closed the portals because he believed humans weren't ready to live alongside spirits, and people like Kuvira and Raiko put forth a pretty compelling argument that he might have been right. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. For now, that's all from me, and I'll see you in another video.